Good afternoon and welcome to today's Committee on Health and Human Services in the Nevada Assembly. Secretary, will you please call roll?
Assembly members Dahlia, here. Edgeworth, here. Gonzalez, here. Goulding, here. Gray, Hafen, Hibbets, here. Hunt, here. Jackson, Koenig, here. Nadim, Wynn, Orentlicker, Chair Brown-May.
I am here. Thank you. Please mark our members present as they arrive. There are members that are working throughout the building today doing bill presentations and work sessions. Welcome to everybody here in Carson City, everyone joining us in Las Vegas. We have a full audience in Las Vegas. And then anyone joining us online. Some housekeeping reminders as we begin. Please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, sign in at the table and provide a business card to our committee secretaries. When you are testifying, please turn on your microphone and clearly state and spell your name. Members of the public can provide public testimony on a bill in person or by telephone. To do so, you will dial 888-475-4499 and then enter the meeting ID, which today is 880-9770-3377, and then hit the pound sign when prompted. Our meeting agenda for today and committee information is always available on Nellis. You can watch us on the legislator's website or on our YouTube channel. Today, public comment will be taken at the end of our meeting, and as a reminder, we always expect courtesy and respect in all of our conversations. Please note that our members will be using our laptops and other electronic devices, so don't take that as a sign of disrespect. They are monitoring other items. We do have two bills today, and we have lots and lots of folks that are here in attendance, so as a lay of the land, we'll ask for our presentations to be kept to 15 minutes total, and then we will take support, opposition, and neutral testimony in 20-minute increments. So we're going to time and make sure that we get everybody here in Carson City, in Southern Nevada, and then on the telephone line. So just know that we'll do that as we get to that part of our testimony. We also have sign language interpreters that are here with us today in this hearing, which we are very thankful for. So we do have a number of folks who are deaf or hard of hearing in the audience, as that's our bill number 2. So our agenda will go in order. We'll start with Assembly Bill 378, which creates the Alternative Therapy Pilot Program. I will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 378 at this time, and we will call our bill sponsors forward to begin. Members, I would note that the primary bill sponsor, Assemblyman Carter, is currently in a work session, and so he will be joining us as soon as possible, but we have agreed to allow his co-presenters to go ahead and kick off our presentation. So you are welcome to begin as you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown-May, Vice Chair Wynn, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is John Dalton, Jondalton, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to co-present AB 378. Thank you, Assemblyman Carter, who is not here today, right now, but for his leadership in championing this bill. I sit before you today as a proud conservative and Nevadan. As a retired SEAL, I had the honor of serving our country for 23 years, with 11 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Upon my transition to civilian life, I began experiencing significant challenges as a result of 7 traumatic brain injuries, thousands of subconcussive events, and PTSD. Conventional psychiatric treatments provided by the VA were ineffective at resolving my severe depression and anxiety. The side effects were awful, and the voodoo treatment approach of traditional psychiatry was to continue to adjust my dose up and down, then switch my medication after medication in a futile attempt to solve my mental health issues. Another SEAL urged me to consider psychedelic-assisted therapy. Initially, I refused and dismissed this treatment modality as a bunch of hippie veterans doing a bunch of hippie drugs to get high and escape reality. I put psychedelics in the same bucket as heroin, crack, and cannabis. After considerable research, I realized I was very wrong about that. I also learned that over 1,500 SEALs left the country to pursue psychedelic therapy. Ultimately, I left the country to engage legally in this treatment. and the results were profound. And they prevented me from becoming one of the 17 to 44 veterans a day who choose to end their life by suicide. No one who serves our country and our communities should have to leave the country to seek this life-saving therapy. We're battling 50 years of false narratives around these compounds, and when we consider how to support our veterans, we must consider the science and the data. I was honored to serve on the Psychedelic Medicines Working Group established by SB 242. Some of the working group's recommendations are now reflected in the two companion bills you're seeing this session, SJR 10 and the bill we are presenting today, AB 378. AB 378 is intentionally structured as a limited scale pilot, not as an open-ended mandate. This bill creates the legal and regulatory scaffolding necessary to allow the state to test, observe, and evaluate the implementation of psychedelic-assisted therapy for the veteran and former first responder populations. Our goal is to prove the concept, to gather data, assess outcomes, and demonstrate that this can be done effectively, safely, and responsibly in Nevada. In doing so, we hope to lay the groundwork for a future, fully regulated and expanded statewide access program, built not on theory or advocacy alone, but on real-world results. I know many legislators support this bill and that it is bipartisan, and I appreciate that. Thank you to all of you. I also recognize there are some who have legitimate concerns that are less focused on what this bill does, but what are the downstream effects, and I can appreciate that as well. I'd like to address one of those concerns. If your instinct is to say no to this bill because you believe it is a slippery slope, because you've seen cannabis go from medical to recreational, and you're afraid the same thing will happen if you vote yes for this bill, I'm asking you to do what I did and truly study this. If you claim to advocate for veterans, please take some time to get smart on this, because the life-saving impact these medicines will have on our veterans is greater than anything discovered in the last 50 years. Read the executive summary and summary of key findings in the working group report, or reach out to me and ask questions. When you read that working group report, take notice of two specific things. The first is that psychedelic-assisted therapy is proven to be a safe, durable, and efficacious game changer that can do what traditional prescription drugs are failing to do. The second thing you will see is that Nevada has a genuine crisis with veteran and first responder mental health. You will see that our state's veteran suicide rate is 50 per 100,000, which significantly exceeds the national veteran rate of 33 per 100,000, and the general population rate of 18 per 1,000. So that's almost triple what the general population rate is. You will see in 2021, suicide was the 13th leading cause of death in our state for veterans overall, and the second leading cause of death among veterans under 45. The second leading cause of death. Those aren't just numbers. Those are our people. The traditional psychiatric system and the VA are failing them, and the psychedelic therapy is saving the few of us who leave the very country we serve to help. If you want to advocate for veterans, if you truly want to support veterans, then supporting this bill means you are putting your money where your mouth is and truly advocating in the most meaningful way possible. At this point, we have a moral imperative to make these treatments available. This is our opportunity to establish Nevada as a national leader in how to effectively and responsibly approach alternative mental health therapies. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown-May, Vice Chair Wynn, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kate Cotter, K-A-T-E-C-O-T-T-E-R. I serve as the Executive Director of Nevada Coalition for Psychedelic Medicines, 501c4, Sierra Psychedelic Society, 501c3, devoted to risk management and education around psychedelics. I was also honored to serve on the Psychedelic Medicines Working Group. I came to this work because of the profound healing that I have personally experienced. I came into this world genetically hardwired for acute anxiety, depression, and addiction, and I am unspeakably grateful for the intervention of psychedelic medicine. The neuroplasticity induced by these compounds, gave me the opportunity to repattern my neural pathways, and to recalibrate my nervous system, something that decades of pharmaceutical treatments and conventional therapies were unable to do. I truly hope that we are able to bring safe access to these treatments to those who are suffering, especially those who have served our country and our communities at great sacrifice. With that, I thank you for the opportunity to run through key sections of AB 378. Notably, Section 3 defines alternative therapy to mean any treatment of a mental health condition that involves the medically supervised administration of a psychedelic substance. Section 7 defines psychedelic substance to include psilocybin, psilocin, dimethyltryptamine, ibogaine, and mescaline, as found in cacti such as San Pedro. Section 9 of the bill creates the Alternative Therapy Pilot Program to provide medically supervised administration of psychedelic substances for the purpose of treating mental health conditions among veterans and former first responders. This section requires the Division of Public and Behavioral Health to administer the program. Section 10 requires the division to adopt regulations to carry out the program. Section 11 authorizes the division to contract with an organization for the purpose of research and education. Section 12 requires the division to authorize at least one person to cultivate, manufacture, or produce psychedelic substances to be used in the pilot program. While the bill leaves specifics of production oversight to regulation, it is understood that any investigational use of a Schedule I substance must comply with federal requirements, including FDA-approved investigational new drug applications, INDs, drug master files, and good manufacturing practices, GMPs. Section 13 requires the division to collect comprehensive data concerning all alternative therapies provided under any pilot program. Section 14 provides that any person who has been approved to participate in the program is immune from civil, criminal, and administrative liability. Section 16 authorizes DBBH to pursue public or private funding and contract with institutions or organizations to support the implementation and evaluation of the pilot. While legislation isn't required to conduct a private study, this section reflects our intent to collaborate with the state and to generate Nevada-specific data. The goal is to lay the foundation for a broader regulated access model in the future based on the research. This could allow for DPBH to act as a regulatory and administrative steward while allowing qualified external partners to do the day-to-day work of patient assessment and selection, treatment, data collection, etc. In closing, I would like to express gratitude to Assemblyman Carter for his vision and leadership in bringing forth this legislation, and thank you all for your time and consideration. We welcome any questions from the committee at this time.
Thank you so much. I'm Max Carter, Assembly District 12, and I apologize to Chair Brown May and Vice Chair Wynn. Work session, you know how we're all conflicted in here all the time. So I really appreciate your tolerance, and thank you to my co-presenters. And I'm going to be brief here that myself, I went through profound, deep grief, treatment-resistant depression, and finally got diagnosed with CPTSD. This was in the aftermath of my wife dying in a very traumatic way. And, when you all first met me in these chambers 2 years ago, I was just barely existing. During the session, I came back to living. During this last campaign, I came back to wanting to live. And why was that? It was because of ketamine. We're not talking about ketamine here, but it is related. My psychiatrist is one who helped with this movement 2 years ago, and I've been through 15 or 20 ketamine sessions. In our discussions in my research, if we were talking about psilocybin, it would have been 1, maybe 2. The lasting benefits are amazing, and we're focusing this time on veterans and first responders, primarily because those are demographics that everybody can identify with, but more importantly, they're ones with accelerated or exacerbated, whatever term we want to use, suicide rates. Veterans in Nevada are 3 times more likely than the average population to commit suicide. First responders, I don't have the data on that, but I can tell you from my interface with law enforcement and the firefighters down south, it is much higher than it is in the general population. And we need to do something to help. This is the something. And when we come back here in 2 years, my belief is this will be mainstream therapy. And with that, I'll turn it over and we're open for questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your stories. We do have a number of questions from members. We'll start with Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I also would like to say thank you for your vulnerability as well. My question is in regards to the, you stated in your presentation that this would be, sorry, it's been a wild morning. I'm trying to form my thoughts. Are we talking about like in doctor settings people are going to be doing? You stated that there's like a person there, right? I'm trying to form. Sorry, my brain is all over the place. But can you talk about what setting that this will be be happening in? Thanks.
Thank you very much for that question, Assemblyman Max Carter, for the record. That yes, we are talking about inpatient treatment. Typically, a psychiatrist or a psychologist sitting in the room with the person. Absolutely no giving the medicine and letting them take it home. It will all be administered under the supervision of a doctor. And that's what we're trying to do. And I'm sure that my co-presenters did it, but the goal too, because we all know the budget crunch, is to facilitate whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about, to establish a framework, guardrails, if you will, and then deputize experts from research institutions, like we've got some amazing researchers down at UNLV and at UNR, deputize them to do the vetting, and then collect data at the end so we can all be back here in 2 years talking about bringing this to the broader population that desperately needs it, like female survivors of sexual assault, trauma victims, and the list goes on and on and on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I have a follow-up, please. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And then I was also wondering, could you speak to the average time frame of a trip and or is this like the traditional 9 to 5 type of doctor's office? Like, I'm just trying to wrap my brains around how this would actually be facilitated. Thank you.
Max Carter, for the record, thank you again for that question. That typically, when we're dealing with psilocybin, it's 6 to 8 hours. So yes, that does mean that the professionals that decide to participate in these types of things are committed. Now, the AMA did, at the beginning of January of 2024, create billing codes to where those can be billed. I wish I knew the numbers of them, but the AMA is forward-looking enough that they have already put the billing codes in place. But yeah, so typically 6 to 8 hours.
Thank you. Next question we have from Vice Chair Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assemblymember Carter, for always really truly bring the needs of the most vulnerable in front of us. So thank you for that. And of course, thank you, Mr. Dalton, for your service. I had a great conversation with Ms. Cotter in my office about this. And I'm curious more on the science behind this, right? So I know that I believe Assemblymember Carter brought phone a friend somewhere down in Vegas. So hopefully he can come up and talk to us about this treatment in terms of the science part of it. So I believe you have Dr. Hines down in Las Vegas. So maybe if Dr. Hines can enlighten us on this science part of the conversation.
Max Carter, for the record, I just want to say we're going to hear from one of those Nevada gems that Nevada should be proud to have this person, Dr. Hines, working and teaching at our university.
Go ahead, Dr. Hines. Please state and spell your name for the record, and then you may begin.
So this is the phone a friend part. I get it now. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair May Brown, Vice Chair Nguyen, and members of the committee. Assemblyman Carter, thank you so much for that introduction. For the record, my name is Dr. Dustin Hines, Dustinhines, and I am a neuroscientist, and I specialize in the brain. I'm a neuroscientist, and how the brain makes new connections. We call those connections neuroplastic connections, and there's a growing body of research that's been able to show that serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter system that psychedelics work on, is critical for this. So for the last 15 or 20 years, I have been studying both serotonin and neuroplasticity events in the brain, and how these compounds interact really to improve mental health. What I really want to do today is bring three key messages so that we can understand. And again, most of these messages are in the working group information that we sent out. But these are things that I think people get kind of stumbly on, that I can say we have facts. And that's what I like to do, give people the facts where we know they are and let you know where things are a little muddy still. The first fact I want to give you is that psychedelics are not addictive at all. In fact, the opposite. So unlike opioids, stimulants, and benzodiazepines, classic psychedelics, and when I say classic, I mean things like psilocybin, LSD, mescaline, are not only not addictive, but in fact, they're anti-addictive. So work by Johnson et al. 2018 and by Guacamole 2014 have shown that these compounds reduce cravings for things like alcohol, nicotine, and opioids. So not only are they not addictive, they're anti-addictive. The second thing I want to bring up, or the second major point, is that psychedelics have a super strong safety profile. So they've been shown to be physiologically safe when administered in control settings. The Global Drug Survey reviewed all kinds of interactions with classic psychedelia over the years and have shown out of any drug taken, these have the lowest rates of harm to users and others, both acutely and long term. The third point that I really want to bring up that I think is critical, and this really is about saving lives, and I think that is important, but cost savings and long-term efficacy. And Assemblyman Carter already talked about this, 20 sessions versus one. From a healthcare perspective, Card Harris et al. 2021 and a big new study by Marwood et al. 2022 were able to show that in any economic model, if we were to start to widespread employ for mental health psychedelics in a personalized medical setting type program, we would cut billions of dollars. So this is not only a way to save lives, which is the most important thing to me, it's also a way for Nevadans to save money. So, in summary and conclusion, the three things I'd like to bring up is that psychedelics are non-addictive, if anything, anti-addictive. They also have a very well established safety profile, and there's significant potential for long-term healing and also huge savings. Thank you.
Quick follow-up, Chair. Dr. Hines, you mentioned briefly on the safety. Can you just elaborate on the safety on this? Because I know that those are where some of the concerns that people have brought up, but if you can highlight on the safety of this, like how safe is this?
Yeah, so I'll do that qualitatively first. They're super safe. So I would be way more worried about somebody taking birth control. Their stats on these adverse effects by 1,000 times more than somebody taking psychedelics. When we look at safety, I think about toxicology. That's the first thing to talk about. And when we talk about toxicology, sorry, this is the doctor in me, we talk about LD50, so the lethal dose 50. You would have to eat so many mushrooms that it would be almost impossible to reach that LD50. So there are almost no, if ever, any cases of somebody overdosing on these compounds. So if you look at something like fentanyl, just touching fentanyl can cause an overdose. So its LD50 is very low. So I don't know if that helps you understand the point, but they're super, super safe, used for 10,000 years with almost very little or no adverse effects.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Hines. Good job on Phone a Friend. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I particularly like the MD, super safe. Super safe. Our next question is from Assemblymember Golding.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. Normally, a clinical trial would be reviewed by a medical panel of scientists, and we as legislators are certainly not qualified in any way to provide any kind of scientific review. So this bill is not creating a clinical trial, it's creating a program. But I have some discomfort with this because I'm not sure of the distinction there. I'm not sure that the bill is clear on that distinction. So could you please elaborate on how this bill is not asking us to provide scientific review of a clinical trial?
For the record, Kate Cotter. Thank you, Assemblymember Golding, for the question. Yes, so this is an important piece of the bill. We are, as mentioned, our intention is to be collaborating with the state, but as Assemblymember Golding is saying, we don't actually need to pass legislation to do a private clinical trial. And so what we have is an opportunity for the state to partner with a third party, and this could be an academic institution, it could be a private sponsor. I will use the example of a company called Sunstone Therapies that does a lot of psychedelic-assisted clinical trials. They are currently working with the state of Maryland, and they are in conversation with Illinois about doing a similar trial with them. So the way this would look is that you would have the state overseeing the program. They would establish the regulations, the day-to-day treatment, the data collection, all of those pieces would be handled by the third-party sponsor. For instance, Sunstone would file the protocol with the FDA, the FDA Internal Review Board, and get the investigational new drug from the manufacturer. They've done this many times for their investigator-initiated studies. They have systems in place for writing the protocol and the data capture, as well as the DEA submission for the Schedule I license at both the federal and the state levels. And they could also do reporting of metrics for recruitment and enrollment and budget contracting as well. They could be collecting similar data, and this is the beauty of it. So if they're working with Maryland or they're working with Illinois, they would be able to collect similar data points, endpoints from state to state, so we would have comparisons. So that's one of the options that we're having. And I know that this was not specific to your question, but one of the things in the bill too is to allow for outside funding, federal grants, private funding, so that we don't have a burden on the state as far as a massive fiscal note. And so this is essentially just really reinforcing our desire to work with the state so that we can set up a regulatory framework moving forward and have a private-public partnership with this program. Does that answer the question?
Somewhat, thank you. I would think that NIH would be an appropriate place. The NIH would be an appropriate agency to fund a clinical trial. And when I think about what that might look like in contrast to what you've just described, you've described multiple states having studies, and I'm wondering if a more effective pathway to your end goal would be to work with NIH in a more traditional clinical trial setting.
Max Carter for the record. We got to remember this is more of proof of concept. The studies have been done. They were done in the 50s and 60s. They've been done now all over. The study, Johns Hopkins, Berkeley, multiple universities and research institutes in partnership with NIH have done those studies. So this is taking and working with the protocols that have already been established by those clinical trials. You know, we were all disappointed last August because there was a pharmaceutical company that was that close to getting FDA approval. Then the hearing, they didn't do so well. There's others that are coming up on it, and so we're not trying to do a full-on deep dive clinical trial researching about what goes on. We're talking about doing proof of concept. This has already been shown to be 75% effective in PTSD. That's one of the studies has shown. So does that help understand why we're going this route instead of the formal NIH route? And besides, with the current climate, is the NIH even going to be in existence tonight?
Thank you for that clarification. So you're not trying to do a clinical trial. This is clearly not a clinical trial. And so I appreciate your clarification of asking us as an unqualified, we're not qualified to be scientific reviewers, so I appreciate that clarification. And I share your concern about the NIH survival. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have another question from Assemblymember Gray.
Good afternoon, Assemblyman Carter and my favorite seal, Mr. Dalton. How are you, buddy?
Thank you.
First off, this is going to end in a question, but I'm a little disappointed. You had me sign on to the resolution last time, and I really would like to sign on to this one. This is so somehow I got missed on this one. But why did I not see it? I can't see my own name. Glasses, got to get them fixed. All right, I'm there. There we go. Alrighty then, let me just go back. Maybe I should. No. I do want to say I'm looking forward to this. When you guys do get ready to roll with it, I am in your key target demographic, so let's talk. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I mean, and I also look at the 22 a day, and if there's one other treatment that'll work, I mean, I don't know it's going to work as well as you guys say it will, but if we can stop any more of those guys, I think it's a very worthwhile deal. That being said, my first question is now null and void. So, ma'am, can I just have a quick yes or no? Quick yes or no. Looking at the cost, we're a policy committee, not a money committee, but looking at the cost and the fact that you just mentioned they now have the codes for billing, the ICD-10 codes, will that reduce the cost of the biennium for this program at all? Do you think they'll be able to bill and reduce that cost?
Max Carter for the record, and as your fellow members of HHS just saw, we've got somebody sitting up there that's got not only personal experience but also career experience in this. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. We are working to minimize the cost to the state because there's a lot of organizations out there that are looking for friendly environments to partner with us. So we would rather have that monetary burden put on private. That's the private part. Bring us your money. Let's do it.
Thank you again, Assemblyman Carter, and thank you for bringing this. I think it'll be a great tool.
Any other questions, members? Before we wrap, could you please just tell me what other states are doing this currently?
Well, I'm going to take and do the first one, Max Carter for the record, and then I'm going to rely on my co-presenters to fill it out. The ones that I want to say, Utah put this in place May 1st, 2024. If Utah can do it, we can do it. And so,
Kate Cotter for the record. That is correct. We also we have Illinois and Connecticut are also working on pilot programs. As you are well aware, Oregon and Colorado have passed fully regulated access programs. Texas is doing research and launching an ibogaine initiative. There's approximately at least 26 states currently with either active legislation or who have already passed different varying levels of legislation, whether that be for research all the way to fully supervised access models. New Jersey has defelonized psilocybin statewide. 24 cities and 2 counties have also decriminalized. That's not to the point of this question at the statewide level, but just for context. Do you want to jump in?
John Dalton, for the record, just one other. New Mexico just recently approved a medical psilocybin bill, SB 219, a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you for that. And then point of clarification, we will need to cultivate mushrooms should this measure pass. Is that an expectation for the Department of Agriculture?
Kate Cotter for the record. Our understanding is that with the federal process for using any kind of investigational study with a Schedule I substance, it has to be on file with the master drug files. And so in theory, it's written into the bill for cultivation. In theory, this would probably not be very viable to have a local cultivator get filed with their FDA license. It would be more likely that we would be going through a private sponsor or an academic institution with somebody who already has a DEA license. So it's written so that it can be cultivated or manufactured. Most likely it would be manufactured.
Thank you for that. And then one final, this has identified the patients to be approved by the division would be restricted to those two honorably discharged from the armed forces or employed previously as a first responder. Do you then envision that those would be the only two qualifiers that would be accepted for this initial run at a pilot program?
John Dalton for the record. That's correct. There's been some discussion on the discharge qualification, but it would be, at this point in time, it's honorably discharged and former for first responder with a diagnosed mental health condition. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Members, any other questions? No. Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll ask you to go ahead and step back. As a reminder, we will open up testimony in support. We're going to start in Las Vegas, if you don't mind. We'll start with support in Las Vegas. A total of 20 minutes, so we're going to go round robin. We'll start in Las Vegas. We'll come up here to Carson City, and then we'll go to the phones until we have reached our 20 minutes. We'll do that for support, opposition, and neutral. So if you are here in support of this measure, Assembly Bill 378, please come forward in Las Vegas. You may begin when you are ready.
Chair Brown and distinguished committee members, my name is Diane Goldstein, DIANE-GOLDSTEIN. I'm a member of the Psychedelics Medicines Working Group as well, where we approved a set of recommendations for establishing a safe and regulated state system to access psychedelic-assisted therapy. Our suggestions outlining the potential benefits and risk of a handful of substances that have shown immense promise in treating complex mental health conditions. Our panel of experts reached one unassailable conclusion: we must act urgently to begin utilizing these innovative therapeutic approaches. As a retired police lieutenant and the executive director of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, a nonprofit, I am painfully familiar with the impact of untreated mental illnesses and have lost multiple friends to suicide. Research presented reflected that nearly 25% of all Nevada adults experienced mental illness in the past year, well above the national average. Our state's suicide rate is 9th highest in the nation. This crisis affects all of us, but research shows that the harms are especially acute, as John Dalton noted, amongst military veterans and first responder communities. We've already stated the veteran suicide rate. Law enforcement, in particular, commits suicide at 5 times the rate of civilians. And PTSD, often stemming from trauma experienced on duty, is actually significantly high here, with 35% of all police officers and about 20% of 911 dispatchers. For too long, we have allowed stigma surrounding both mental health and psychedelics to compound this crisis on all levels. In light of our working group's report, we can now say with certainty that this is a false and unnecessary choice. By establishing a strictly regulated pilot program to give military veterans and first responders controlled access to psychedelics, AB 378 would promote the safe use and continued research into these promising treatments.
Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate you. You have reached your 2 minutes. If you have prepared remarks, please leave them with our secretaries. We'd be happy to enter them into the record. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas who would like to offer testimony in support of this measure? I don't see anyone. Okay, we'll come up here to Carson City. Go ahead, state and spell your name. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown May, Vice Chair Wynn, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Garrig Tucker, GEHRIGTUCKER, and I'm speaking today in support of AB 378. August 10th, 2023, 5 months after my suicide attempt, I was in the place that had always brought me the most peace doing what I love most, bow hunting in the mountains. There was a problem, though. I couldn't focus. Stalking my target and preparing for the shot should have felt natural, yet my mind was consumed by a single unshakable image. My body in a casket, a bullet hole in my head, and my mother weeping over me. I had tried psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, prolonged exposure therapy, and 4 different SSRIs as a precursor to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, all to no avail. Forgiveness was not a word that existed in my vocabulary, and I suffered from dwelling on the worst in humanity and myself. When I was removed from active duty after my traumatic brain injuries, I felt truly lost. I was disconnected from my purpose, my tribe, and most importantly, myself. I forgot who I was. The little boy inside me seemed like a distant memory, and I could no longer associate with who he was. Enter my trip to Mexico for Ibogaine. The Ibogaine experience was incredibly challenging. I experienced terror and anxiety in every cell of my body. Through coaching and integration, I realized Ibogaine was revealing to me what my daily life had felt like, an existence consumed by fear and exhaustion. Seeing and experiencing these feelings firsthand made me fully grasp the weight that I had been carrying, the relentless fatigue, and the sheer effort it took just to get through the day. Ibogaine showed me that judgment towards myself and others had pulled me so far away from my native state of compassion. It brought me an immense understanding of where these suicidal thoughts stem from. I had been so viscerally disconnected from my true self that I wanted to kill who I'd become. This understanding allowed me to heal and recover my soul. Post-Ibogaine treatment, I can honestly say that I haven't experienced this much energy and clarity in some time. I feel liberated from the chains that bound me, and it has restored my relationship with myself, allowing me to be emotionally present in my relationship with others.
Chair and members of the committee, for the record, my name is John Henry Parker, Johnhenry Parker. For over 35 years, I've been a behavioral assessment analyst in the corporate sector and a volunteer peer advisor and mentor to at-risk veterans. I've authored and produced 2 books and audiobooks that deal directly with transitioning at-risk veterans. Transitioning Veterans, How We Get in Our Own Way and What to Do About It, and Be the Dawn in the Darkness, the relentless pursuit of becoming who we are meant to be. I'm a former Marine who has suffered from severe PTSD my entire life until my introduction to psychedelics about 15 years ago. I'm the son of a Korean War and Vietnam combat veteran who never sought help. I'm also the father of a Purple Heart recipient and Army combat veteran of 2 deployments in Afghanistan who did not survive his transition from military service due to the severity of his PTSD. After the loss of my son Danny in 2009, I semi-retired to focus my efforts on supporting and mentoring at-risk veterans and their families, with a personal mission of saving lives and keeping families together. Now, many years later, having worked with hundreds of struggling veterans one-on-one who suffer from PTSD, depression, substance abuse disorders, and suicide ideation, I can tell you that progress is slow, arduous, and at times heartbreaking. I'm here to report that most often, after only one single session with psychedelics, veterans wake up and they come to their senses. Hope begins to return, and we are able to help them begin to reset their outlook on life. With the help of our legislators and the support of this growing advocacy movement, I hope we will find the collective wisdom to pass this legislation and provide our veterans with the help they deserve and desperately need. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown-May, Vice Chair Nguyen, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Blair Zika, BLAIREZIKA, and I'm speaking today in support of AB 378. Blair, I love you so much. I cannot imagine the heartbreak and torment that I will put you through. There was a darkness in me that I tried to control, and I begged for it to leave my body, and it wouldn't. And this is the consequence. If I thought that there was a way that I could get through this, I would not be doing this. Those are the final words I heard on a 14-minute audio message from my husband, a Marine Corps veteran, moments before he chose death by suicide 9 years ago. His words have instilled within me a relentless call to action to magnify the voice of veterans still with us who are contemplating that very same decision right now. Within our veteran population, a minimum of 22 suicide deaths per day continue to take place. In the psychedelic therapy sector, we tirelessly discuss the importance of risk management, safe engagement, and as a means to reduce harm. Supporting safe legal access through passing AB 378 is the most effective form of risk management that we could implement. The medicines and therapies outlined in AB 378 have been proven to not just treat symptoms such as PTSD, but to effectively eliminate them. Conversely, the denial of AB 378 further guarantees that at least 22 veterans will die tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Those aren't arbitrary statistics. They are the harrowing reality of our veterans. I come before you today to encourage you to support the safe passage of AB 378. These medicines will never be able to save Eric. However, knowing that they will save thousands of other people's Erics allows my pain, grief, and heartbreaking loss to have profound purpose and deep meaning. And for that, I am grateful. And I thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown May and Vice Chair Nguyen, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Roy Marchbanks. That's Marchbanks, and I'm a retired fire captain. I'm speaking here today in support of AB 378. And for 25 years, I served in the fire service, and my guiding light was the painted words on the side of the fire truck. They said pride in service. It shaped the way that I dressed, the way I trained, and the way I served the public. But looking back, I realized that there was a group that I didn't serve to the best of my abilities, and that was my brothers and sisters in the fire service. Over the course of my career, I lost 3 colleagues, men in their early 40s, gone too soon from alcohol poisoning and prescription drug overdose. And there were always 3 or 4 others I feared would follow that path when they retired and no longer had a reason to stay sober. Firefighters are some of the toughest, most selfless people you'll ever meet, but we are notoriously bad at asking for help. We see trauma every day, we bottle it up, we tell ourselves it's just part of the job, and when the weight gets too heavy, we drink, we isolate, we numb the pain. Because for a lot of us, talk therapy just felt like a waste of time. I get it, I was there, but fortunately, I was able to find a different type of therapy that changed my life, and that was psychedelic therapy. Psychedelic-assisted therapy. Unfortunately, I had to leave the country to access it, but I'm here today because healing shouldn't be a privilege. First responders shouldn't have to go outside the state or the country to get the care that they need. We serve our communities with everything we have, but sometimes we just need a little help to be at our best. I'm here to talk about solutions. I'm living proof that psychedelic-assisted therapy is a game changer, and it's with pride and service that I'm asking for your help, so that first responders can access the mental health care that they deserve, because saving lives shouldn't cost us our own.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown May and Vice Chair Nguyen, and all members of the committee. For the record, my name is Clinton Diong, C-L-I-N-T-D-I-O-N-G, and I'm in support of AB 378. I'm a United States Marine Corps disabled veteran who served from 2000 to 2004. I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan on 9/11. Happened shortly after I deployed with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit overseas. We ran resupply missions and into Afghanistan, and we were the tip of the spear during Operation Iraqi Freedom and many more operations. I'm a highly decorated Marine, and I've always had a deep love and dedication to my country and its people. But what I didn't realize at the time was the cost I'd carried home: multiple TBIs, PTSD, night terrors, memory loss, and a broken body by service. I tried to get help through the VA at one point, and I was on a grocery bag full of pharmaceuticals that left me worse off. Addicted, confused, and at rock bottom, I lost everything. And I nearly lost my life to suicide and addictions multiple times. It wasn't until I turned to psychedelic therapy that I found not just treatment, but real healing. Since receiving proper psychedelic treatment, I have not had a single PTSD episode, night terror, or major depressive spiral, and I no longer take any mental health pharmaceuticals. My life has changed for the better. Veterans are dying every day by suicide, addiction, and untreated mental health issues. Psychedelics helped me save my own life, and I'm here to ask you to give others the same chance. Please support AB 378. We have the opportunity to bring hope, healing, and a future to thousands of veterans and members of our community who are still suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of AB 378? Please come forward at this time.
Good afternoon. I'm Barry Cole. I'm a psychiatrist from Northern Nevada. Been in the state since 1986. I take my psychiatric guidance from the American Psychiatric Association, and I just want to get this into the record because it's actually more interesting than one would think. Currently, inadequate scientific evidence for endorsing the use of psychedelics to treat any psychiatric disorder, except within the context of approved investigational studies. The American Psychiatric Association supports continued research and therapeutic discovery into psychedelic agents with the same scientific integrity and regulatory standards applied to other promising therapies in medicine. Clinical treatment should be determined by scientific evidence in accordance with applicable regulatory standards and not by ballot initiatives nor popular opinion. I would concur with that. Now, until this weekend, I was a member of the board of directors of the Nevada Coalition for Psychedelic Medicine. Because of scheduling conflicts, I've resigned from that position. So I need to make that disclaimer. As a psychiatrist, I wish I had access to these medicines today. I do not. The only way we're going to get access is by doing the rigorous scientific studies. This bill, 378, is our step into this process. It's not a complete scientific process, but it's getting us started, and every journey begins with the first step. I believe this is the first step. I hope for your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Matthew Wagner, Matthew Wagner, and I'm here in support of AB 378. For most of my 20s, I struggled with anxiety and depression, constant intrusive thoughts, and I could not regulate my emotions. I was given antidepressants, opioids, and benzodiazepines. All these did for me was mask my symptoms and make me numb to my emotions, and worst of all, my family. Longing to get better, and after hearing about the research happening with psychedelics, I tried a guided psilocybin experience. I can confidently say this was the most profound experience of my entire life, rivaled only by the birth of my children. I never knew that this type of healing was even possible. I felt like I had done years of therapy in about 3 hours, and I no longer needed any of my prescriptions. I have a lot of veteran family members, and seeing how this completely changed my life, this lit a passion in me to see these become medically available. My only desire here is to see other people have access to the medicine that brought me so much healing, especially our veterans and first responders. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to the telephone lines. You're welcome to come forward and have a seat at the chair. We're going to go to the telephone lines and give them an opportunity to weigh in. ABH, is there anyone on the telephone line in support of Assembly Bill 378?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 378, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 378, please press star 9 now.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown May, members of the committee. My name is Chandler Cooks, ChandlerCooks, and I'm in support of Assembly Bill 378. Every day in Nevada, we lose veterans and first responders not to combat, but to invisible wounds. Trauma, PTSD, addiction, depression, these are not just clinical diagnoses. They are soul-deep scars left untreated by a system that has run out of answers. According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, up to 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans suffer from PTSD. First responders, or firefighters, paramedics, law enforcement officers, face PTSD rates almost 5 times higher than the general population, and yet traditional treatments often fail them. That's where AB 378 steps in, not with speculation, but with science, structure, and state oversight. A 2021 clinical trial published in Nature Medicine showed that 67% of participants receiving MDMA-assisted therapy no longer met the criteria for PTSD, and studies from Johns Hopkins University reports lasting positive changes in mood, behavior, and outlook after just 1 to 2 psilocybin-assisted sessions. This isn't about legalization. This isn't about recreation. This is about compassion backed by clinical rigor. It's about giving people who ran into fires, dodged bullets, and held the line for us a chance to find peace when they return home. And make no mistake, this is a public health issue. suicide is now the second leading cause of death among veterans under 45. A 2022 report by the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services revealed that our state's veteran suicide rate remains significantly higher than the national average. If we don't act, we are complicit in a system that tells heroes to heal themselves while we debate whether they deserve better tools. AB 378 is that better tool. It is smart, it is safe, and it is overdue. Let Nevada be bold. Let us be the state that leads with innovation, with integrity, and with the courage to say, if it can heal, we will try it. If it can help, we will offer it. And if it can save a life, we will fight for it. So please vote yes on AB 378, and let's give those who gave us everything a real shot at something better. Thank you.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 378, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits, 142, please press star 6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Thank you. Caller, before you begin.
Hi, good afternoon.
Caller, can you hear me? Just, sorry, for 1 second before you begin. I would just like to let everyone know that we're down to about 2.5 minutes. So if you would expedite your comments, there are still 3 people at the table up here. Not everyone's comments are important. We want to get you on the record. I just want to let you all know where we are with regard to our time frame. You may go ahead, caller.
Hi, good afternoon, committee. Thank you for the time. My name is Nick Marquardt, Nick Marquart. I'd just like to voice my support for AB 378. I myself have had 44 years of anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues, and took my first journey using this medicine last year in August, and it has revolutionized my life. You'll hear a word used consistently, and that is profound. There is no other description for this, and it changes your life. Suicide is no longer an option for me. Happiness is something that I can experience. And my wife is sitting in the audience and has had the exact same experience. Annette Magnus is the person that turned me on to this, and I will do anything I can to support this bill and the organizations that want this to pass. So I please ask you to do the same.
Sure, there are no other callers to provide testimony and support.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Rosalie Bingham for the record. I support 378, AB 378. I was an industrial hemp farmer of the year in 2016 and 17. I'd never even seen a marijuana plant before I grew it and became an award-winning. And I think it's very important that we hit the ground with education before just releasing new products into the group of mainstream. And this would be a great pilot so that they can actually get more information before it becomes into the hands of people that aren't educated in how to use it. And I think it's a great, I support this bill. Thank you.
Dear Chair and members of the committee, for the record, my name is Aaron Augustus, AARON-AUGUSTIS. I am here today to support AB 378. I am a United States Army veteran, having served a deployment to Iraq in 2003, and I am service-connected with the VA. Additionally, I am the co-owner of Higher Dimensions of Healing, a psychedelic wellness center and ketamine clinic here in Carson City, alongside with my wife, Christine Salvo, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a psychedelic certified counselor. Through my own personal experience, and importantly through the work we do at Higher Dimensions of Healing, I have witnessed firsthand the profoundly positive influence and effect that psychedelics can have on individuals struggling with PTSD, treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. We are seeing real healing take place. It is our sincere hope that the committee recognizes the immense potential of expanding access to psychedelic therapies for our veterans and all those grappling with these challenging conditions. Please know that at Higher Dimensions of Healing, we stand ready and willing to collaborate on any research endeavors and psychedelic therapy sessions that will help to advance this crucial initiative. Thank you for your time and your dedication to supporting our veterans.
Thank you. We're now at 20 minutes, so if you will go ahead and be our last testimony, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair May Brown, Vice Chair Nguyen, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Marina Ijova Rex, spelled MARINA-EJOVAREX, and I am here in support of AB 378. I have an incredible privilege to experience these medicines firsthand, They have existed for thousands of years in indigenous cultures all over the world, from Australia, Siberia, South and North America. Psilocybin has been used on every single continent of the world for its medicinal properties for healing. And I've been fortunate to personally experience these medicines 15 years ago to heal from some of, they've been able to guide me through my life's challenges and dark moments, including childhood traumas from mafia extortions and some major life transitions, like evacuations from the fire and floods and multiple immigrations and moves. They provided me long-term lasting healing and clarity for my life. This transformative experience also empowered me mentally and physically, and now I dedicated my life to supporting other women who struggle with trauma, mental, physical, and sexual abuse, to reach healing and a fully functional life. This has also allowed me to learn from diverse indigenous communities, from their wisdom, and who are still keeping those traditions alive. Making these medicines available and accessible to those in need in our state of Nevada would greatly benefit thousands of individuals and their families who are struggling today. The statistics are alarming. The stress levels are increasing. This is a crucial time to open up our minds and join hands for our community and the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into opposition testimony. Is there anyone here in opposition of Assembly Bill 378? Please come forward in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Seeing no movement in Carson City, no movement in Las Vegas. ABH, is there anyone on the telephone line in opposition of Assembly Bill 378?
Public lines are open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 378. Is there anyone here to offer testimony in neutral on this measure? Carson City? Anyone in Las Vegas to offer neutral testimony? AVH, is there anyone on the telephone lines who would like to offer neutral testimony on this measure?
Public lines are open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you, AVH. At this time, we'll invite our bill sponsor back up for closing comments.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'm going to ask real quickly, those that are in the audience here and down in Vegas that support this measure, would you please stand up? And if you look at this right now, we're looking at a cross-section of our country. It's not narrowed down to any socioeconomic group, any gender, anything else. It is universally needed, wanted, and critical to get put in place. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 378. I thank you all for sharing your stories and being vulnerable in this committee so that we may have an opportunity to consider this measure. Okay, next on our agenda, we will open the bill hearing for Assembly Bill 395. We will invite our Assembly Member Roth and her team to the table. This measure revises provisions relating to services to persons who are deaf or hard of hearing. We'll stand in a brief recess. Okay, we'll call back to order and welcome our Assemblymember Roth to the table alongside her team. Welcome to those who are now able to make their way into the room. Thank you. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown-May and Vice Chair Nguyen and members of the committee. My name is Erica Roth, E-R-I-C-A-R-O-T-H, and I am proud to represent Assembly District 24 in Washoe County. Thank you for allowing me to present Assembly Bill 395. This important bill ensures people who are deaf or hard of hearing have access to sign language interpreters to assist them in navigating their health care. With me today is Shelley Freed with the Las Vegas Deaf Seniors, who is present in Las Vegas, and Eric Wilcox is present with me here, and he is chair of the Nevada Commission for Persons Who Are Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And to the interpreter, please let me know if I go too fast. Communication in a medical setting is crucial for making sure that provision of healthcare is as effective as possible. People who are deaf or hard of hearing routinely experience inadequate healthcare because of a lack of communication and language barriers. Our healthcare system has largely failed to ensure and provide accessible language services and health information for many deaf individuals, worsening health outcomes for this vulnerable population. Effective communication between patients and providers often results in higher rates of preventative screenings, improved patient satisfaction, and quality of healthcare communication. Research also demonstrates that effective communication can shorten a patient's length of stay, reduce hospital readmissions and emergency room visits, and improve healthcare outcomes. AB 395 seeks to improve communication with our deaf and hard of hearing communities and medical settings. I will now pass it to my co-presenters to speak to the need for the bill, and then I will briefly walk the committee through the amendment. And Ms. Freed, if you want to begin.
Hello. Recognizing the chair in the assembly, my name is Shelley Freed, for the record. I want to encourage you to support AB 395. It is vital that we stress the seriousness of healthcare and the disparities there are with the deaf and hard of hearing community, the things that they experience every day in the state of Nevada. Research shows that deaf individuals are 7 times more likely to experience heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, not only because we are less healthy, that's not the case at all, but because of the significant disparity in access. It prevents us to have healthcare, communication access to a system that is biased. Healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, and different specialists have failed to provide appropriate access communication options to us. They force us to write in English, which is not our primary language. Even though we're born in America, we are just deaf, but we use a language which is a visual language, not a spoken language and not a written language. Having to do with research, Healthy People in 2010 wrote an article that said 77% of deaf patients have reported difficulties in communication with hospital staff. And shockingly so, 33% leave these medical facilities, hospitals and so forth, not knowing what to do with the medicine they've been given, the instructions, which could cause taking the medications incorrectly and other problems. I want to share my personal experience with you. Last October in 2022, I was admitted into the hospital after I had a bicycle accident. And I was in the emergency room. I was not offered an option of VRI, which is a remote interpreter, or a sign language interpreter on site. I was forced to write. Luckily, I'm an educated person, and that is true for some of the population, but a lot of deaf people don't have the level of education that I do, and I can write in English. However, The doctor did not want to take the time to write to me. He wanted the nurse to make all the notes and write back and forth to me. So I sat and waited and asked for an interpreter. 2 hours later, I started to become a little aggravated, and they gave me morphine because I was termed aggressive. And I went into x-ray finally, and they found out I had a fractured humerus in my arm, and made the decision then to keep me in the hospital. I did not see any doctor for 2 days. And on the third day, finally, a doctor came in to see me and talked. And I said, I need either VRI or an interpreter. And they said, okay. So they gave me a cell phone. Something was about the size of a cell phone. Now, here I am with a broken arm in a sling, wanting me to hold a phone with my good arm. How am I supposed to communicate? So I threw the phone back, or the device back to the nurse, rejecting it. And my boyfriend then FaceTimed my daughter in another state to listen to what the doctor was saying. And the nurse, my doctor was in California, and the nurse decided to stand right by the doctor, down by my feet. Now I'm laying down in a bed. Now, can I see the interpreter that far away? Are you kidding me? So I signed to my daughter through FaceTime, who was right on the side of me. But the whole experience, I felt like I was a patient in a third world country. I did not have the equal access that you have. And Medicare billed me because they said I stayed in the hospital too long, and for that diagnosis of that fracture. And I had to appeal the case and go through all of that rigmarole to finally have them clarify this. So I want you to understand what I faced myself, but I'm not only talking about myself. All these people in this room, everyone has a story of their own. And I do want to thank them all for coming today, because the system has failed us. I did file with the director of risk management at the hospital a complaint because they did not have an ADA coordinator or a Section 1477 coordinator at that hospital, which is federal law. And I would like to see this bill, AB 395, pass. And I want some teeth in it, because I want the federal law to put the responsibility back into the healthcare system. My experience was very, very emotional, mentally and physically. And for my healthcare, I can see all the people that I associate with in the state of Nevada, and I speak for them on their behalf. And I thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Eric Wilcox, ERICWILCOOX. I am a parent of a deaf child, and I am chair of the Nevada Commission for Persons who are Deaf and Hard of Hearing. On behalf of the Commission, I'd like to thank Chair Brown-May and members of the committee for the opportunity this afternoon. I'd also like to thank Assemblymember Roth and Chair Brown-May for sponsoring the important bill. And especially, I'd like, on behalf of the Commission, to acknowledge Shelley Freed, who you just heard from, and her colleagues at the Las Vegas Deaf Seniors for hard work and advocacy over years to address this issue, which brings us to this hearing today. The Nevada Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing travels the state twice annually to conduct town hall sessions with members of the community that we represent. This issue of communication accessibility in hospitals and other healthcare settings is one of the issues that we hear the most consistently about from across the state. I've served on the commission for several years, and there's just been a steady drumbeat of familiar stories, requests for interpreters at scheduled appointments that go unfulfilled, miscommunications and lack of understanding between doctors and patients. And many of these stories are harrowing, including patients and families spending days in the hospital unable to communicate adequately, or patients being discharged from the hospital or leaving doctor's appointments unclear on the details of their follow-on care. Such outcomes are obviously inadequate and risk the health and well-being of members of our community. This bill addresses critical goals agreed upon by the Commission, including requiring that adequate ASL interpreting be made available in healthcare settings when requested or when deaf individuals present at urgent care centers or emergency rooms, that all such medical facilities provide qualified on-site ASL interpreters when necessary and not relying solely on video remote interpreting, and that guidelines be established that ensure that video remote interpreting is only used when appropriate, does not replace in-person interpreters in critical medical situations, and that video remote interpreting, if used appropriately, be provided in a manner that ensures adequate communication access. A theme has emerged in some of these town hall conversations that we've had around the state in the past year. There's really a sense in this community that the Americans with Disabilities Act just doesn't apply here in Nevada, like we're in some kind of vortex. The ongoing struggle for deaf individuals to gain the basic human right of communication accessibility during critical conversations with doctors and other healthcare providers illustrates why it's so important that the state adopt the requirements and standards described in this bill and provide some consequence if appropriate communication access is not provided. The Commission for Persons who are Deaf and Hard of Hearing thanks you all for the consideration of this critical legislation.
Thank you, Erica Roth, for the record. Chair, with your permission, if I can walk the committee through the amendments that were provided.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I just want to note for the record, I appreciate so much. We have had so many stakeholders come to the table on this to really try to craft legislation that gets to the heart of this issue and which will allow hospitals and other medical settings to be able to comply. And so with that, we have come to the amendment that we currently have, but I will note for the committee, it is kind of a live document. Some issues have been brought back to my attention that we're going to continue these conversations, but I will just briefly walk us through this. Section 1 and 8 of the bill will mirror each other in language and will require medical facilities and healthcare providers to first give notice that the patient is able to request an in-person or remote interpreter. 2, that when requested, the facility must make a good faith attempt to provide an in-person interpreter and must retain documentation of such an attempt. Or where the patient it is required where the patient requests the interpreter within 48 hours notice or after 2 hours of a hospital stay. And then it does allow, again, for documentation if we find our healthcare providers in a situation where there is just simply no ASL interpreter available. And in all of those situations, adequate video interpretation is required. I will know that we have discussed a population cap in this bill. Currently in the amendment is 2,500. We're still in discussions on what that looks like in practice. There's a lot of varying medical settings and limited number of interpreters in rural settings, and so we just want to find a solution that allows the rural communities to comply, but also ensure that everyone is making their best effort to ensure that patients who deserve to have that communication, adequate communication, are able to get that. Section 8 of the bill excludes emergency personnel. This was an amendment that was requested from Henderson Fire, which is a friendly amendment. The purpose of this bill is not to require ASL interpreters with EMTs or anything that's emergent like that. We want those folks to get our patients to the proper medical settings. We don't want that to be delayed, but we do want them to have the option to request an in-person interpreter once they are settled in. Sections 4, 6, and 9 of the bill prescribe various enforcement mechanisms, including the imposition of administrative sanctions against a health facility that fails to comply with the provisions of the bill. The penalties of failure to comply are still being discussed amongst stakeholders. We had taken out the criminal penalties. I know that some folks are, and which I understand, would like some teeth to this to make sure that there is more incentive to comply. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations and find something that really makes folks feel like this bill is doing it justice. And then Section 8 additionally authorizes professional discipline against a healthcare provider who does not comply with the provisions of the bill, and those are mirrored mostly from other statutes as well. And then lastly, Section 7 requires the Department of Health and Human Services to maintain a list on its website of assisted living facilities and senior living communities that provide services specialized for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. I know that the department has reached out with some suggested amendments, and we're going to work with them as well to make sure that we can get this piece of legislation right. And with that, with Chair's permission, I'm happy to open up for questions.
Thank you. We do have a number of members who have questions. We'll start with Minority Leader Hafen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Assemblymember Roth, for bringing this forward. And I see there's a lot of work, so thank everyone that's worked on the amendment. And that's where my questions are. Two, if I may, Chair. One is the bullet point here, you said LCB to draft a new section to post a list of interpreters in the state. Do we have a time frame of when that would be? Would we get that? And what I'm asking is, would we get that before we end up voting on this, or is that going to be something that would be provided down the road?
Erica Roth, for the record, Chair, through you to Assemblymember Hafen. Thank you so much for that question, Assemblymember. That is not something that I contemplated. I'm happy to have a discussion. I think we probably anticipated that would be something that the facilities would have to, or excuse me, that the division would have to comply with if passed. But I'm not sure what the lift is on getting that list, and I'm happy to look into that, what that would look like for you.
Thank you. I think we might have a phone a friend available in the audience if they are willing to come up. We have a number of folks here from the division who can perhaps respond to that. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Adrienne Navarro with the Aging and Disability Services Division. I'm a social services chief, and I oversee the Communication Access Services Program with the Aging and Disability Services Division. We maintain what's called the Interpreter CART Registry for Nevada. So all registered interpreters, all interpreters in Nevada need to be registered with this registry. We evaluate the credentials and education and qualifications for interpreters. And if they qualify, then they are on that registry. So we do already maintain that list. It is not necessarily a list that somebody would go to and then find an interpreter and call an interpreter. It's a list of those registered interpreters, but individuals or hospitals or healthcare providers would still work through agencies to find an interpreter who is available. So agency and interpreter agencies in the state.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You have a follow-up?
I have a second question, if it's
Go
okay,
right ahead.
Chair. Thank
Yes.
you. So my second question, Assemblymember Roth, is you stated in the amendment that there'd be a population cap of 2,500. However, the conceptual amendment says 25,000, and I'm really hoping that you meant 250,000.
It was 25,000. Erica Roth, for the record. Thank you for the question, Assemblymember. I misspoke. I did become a lawyer because I can barely count, so I appreciate the question. But 25,000. But we are in discussion with a lot of folks on that number. I had conversations yesterday with some representatives of more of the rural counties, Douglas County, and just what the numbers actually look like for interpreters. And so we are continuing to work on that number. What I will say is what we really tried to focus on in this bill, though, too, is that, a recognition that not all counties are staffed the same. And so, although we need to make sure that we are getting in-person interpreters as much as we can, there has to be a recognition that we can't force one of the smaller counties to suddenly have ASL interpreters that didn't previously exist. So we are working through that language. Happy to engage you if you have any concerns for your district.
I would greatly appreciate it, because there are, I live in a county with 60-something thousand people, and we struggle throughout our county to keep doors open of medical facilities and have doctors there, let alone an interpreter. And so I do have some concerns with where that threshold ends up. So I appreciate your willingness to work with me. Thank you. And thank you, Chair, for the questions.
Thank you. To that point, is there a consideration, or perhaps you will speak to it now in questioning, right? I know you talked to it a little bit about it during the bill presentation, where electronic interpretation then takes a priority so that every person who is deaf or hard of hearing or requiring sign language can do that through an electronic device when an in-person is not available?
Yes, Erica Roth for the record, and thank you so much for that question, Chair. That is absolutely correct. With the amendment, and the purpose of the bill is to first let folks know that they do have a right to request an in-person interpreter. And then it is the duty of the facility to make a good faith effort to seek an in-person interpreter. But where not available, they have to make that documentation. So there is, they can't just say, one doesn't exist, I know that. There needs to be actual steps taken. But in recognition that some places, there will be instances where there will be one unavailable, then that is when the visual device would come in, and there's a requirement that that be adequate. I think you heard from Ms. Freed that, there's been a lot of folks who've experienced inadequate audio-visual communication, and so it's also really important that we work on that aspect of it. We had a long list of requirements to make sure the video was adequate. We kind of trimmed that down, and we're also still open to language on that. We want to make it so that folks can comply, but also that it's very clear what's required of them.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Assembly Member Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assemblywoman Roth. I'm going to echo my counterparts' statements about the pop cap. First, it's if you could look at a higher pop cap, maybe 100,000 or 300,000 would be great, especially when you're looking at counties like White Pine with the Ryrie Hospital out there in Ely. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it's ever going to happen. But the question I have is, wouldn't it be, and this is from a medical standpoint, wouldn't it be easier to use like a tablet where most of these patients can type out what their signs and symptoms and whatnot are? Because, I mean, if you've ever tried to work with a patient and figure out what's going on through an interpreter doesn't always get it, and sometimes they don't even come close to getting it, whereas, in the patient's own words in a typed out format would much more clearly describe what's going on.
Erica Roth for the record. Thank you for that question, Assembly Member. I'll take a stab at it, and then I'm actually going to pass it to either Mr. Wilcox or Ms. Freed. I think you heard Ms. Freed touch on this briefly, but she said that writing is not her first language. ASL is a different language, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but what I have learned through this process of this bill is how important facial expressions are, body languages, all of that, to have real communication when you are engaging in ASL, and how, I think it's deeply, deeply important to the community to be able to communicate, because it is part of the language. And so I'll pass it to Ms. Freed if she wants to touch on that.
Yes, I do. Shelley Freed here for the record. I do want to clarify having to do with the VRI services. I want to make sure that every medical facility and hospital does have VRI available and the operating capacity for it. Many experiences we face are that the VRI systems are locked in the closet, collecting dust. The nurses don't have keys to get access to the equipment. This is a common experience. So we need to make sure that the VRI is available on a stand, is ready, that it's clear, it's connectable, so that deaf people have clear VRI services, even in the rural areas. That's critical. We understand that's important, not to say, oh, sorry, it isn't charged. Oh, we don't know how to do it. I don't know how to use this. I don't have the phone number. I can't find it. No more excuses. Learn how to use the device, train your staff, be ready for the patients, and when it's a critical time in their lives. It's a life-saving issue.
Thank you, Erica Roth, for the record. Thank you so much. And Ms. Freed, would you be willing to speak to the importance of not just writing down symptoms, but actually having that interpretation?
Certainly. Many deaf individuals write maybe second, third grade level. They may not have formal vocabulary, medical terminology, be able to understand what the doctors or nurses are describing to them. We can describe it in our language using our grammar. You can also sense the patient's anger, pain, frustration, suffering, all the different levels of pain, sharp pain, dull pain. Those kinds of things need to be expressed. How can they write that down if they don't have the vocabulary for that? It's not just everyday basic life skills, but it's specific to medical feelings and pain, and that an interpreter can describe and bring those signs into English terminology for the doctors to understand.
Go ahead, follow up.
Thank you for that description. So I got to ask, how is it being done now then? If you said, I mean, how is the patient telling the interpreter what's wrong with them if you're saying that the patient doesn't know the words in ASL to communicate to the interpreter to give to the doctor?
All right. Shelley Freed here again for the record. In sign language, we have many, many signs that can express a feeling. For example, a cramp in your arm, where an interpreter can perhaps say a spasm where the deaf person might write cramp. But the sign has variations of English that the interpreter can convey. I have for example, bleeding, vaginal bleeding, and it's a lot. I sign that. And the interpreter might say, well, maybe there's excessive bleeding more than normal, or explain it in more detail, where the English written version by the deaf person would be limited. ASL does not have a written form. It's not just English on the hands. It's a different language that's visual. And so the interpreters are trained to understand that language and to be able to translate that into spoken English that the doctor will understand.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question we have from Assemblymember Goulding.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this great presentation. Really appreciate it. And this is the second presentation that we've had this session on the need for resources for this population. So sort of taking this another step, thinking about, we clearly have a need for this resource in our state, and it sounds like there's a shortage of individuals that can be ASL interpreters. Do we have the resources in our state to do workforce development in this area? And have you considered adding that to your bill? I know that we've had that conversation about the other bill that we heard.
Erica Roth, for the record, thank you so much for that question, Assemblymember Goulding. And I think it's such an important one. You know, one of the hardest things of really getting the language right on this bill is that there are just simply barriers in this state because we don't have enough interpreters. And so the workforce development piece is critically important. You know, a person who enters into a hospital setting or a doctor's office, you are sometimes getting the most important news of your life. Maybe you find out that the gender of your child. Maybe you find out that you're diagnosed with cancer. And these, you know, the community deserves to go through those processes with dignity and respect, and with the ability to navigate those settings adequately so that they can get the best care that they can. And so that workforce development piece, I think, is really critically important. I am always happy to have that conversation. I know we have a few other bills this session that are really trying to address issues within the community. And so I'm more than happy to see what work can be done, whether it's my bill or someone else's bill. But I certainly agree that I think that this is an area that this body and the state really needs to make a priority and take seriously because it matters. It is regarding the value of human life.
Eric Wilcox for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember Golding, for the question. It's a valuable one. We've discussed amongst the community and as you alluded in context of other bills, the need for workforce development. In this area, there are some efforts within the higher education, system of higher education to provide that. I think there's a need for more. I think there's an effort at UNR because right now you cannot get certified as an interpreter in the North, I believe. But I also wanted to just state that I don't think that in all cases the problem that we're encountering in healthcare facilities is simply a consequence of the shortage of interpreters. I think you'll find in urban areas it's very difficult. A lot of the stories that we hear come from the urban parts of the state where there are interpreters available. There are multiple interpreter agencies operating. So I don't think it's solely that issue, but it is an important issue, and we do need more capacity in the state. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. That additional information is important.
Thank you. Next, we have Assemblymember Koenig.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for bringing this forward. I know it's a challenge. I appreciate that in Section 3 you put in eye examinations in there. I have three deaf patients that come to me every year, and we provide the interpreter, but we usually have to bring them out of Reno. I mean, there isn't anyone in our community that's able to do that. And just the challenges, I mean, you hear the lady down in Vegas who gets really frustrated with that, but it's frustrating for the doctor too. I mean, think of the eye exam as I put you behind the thing and say, which is better, one or two? The interpreter has to go stand in front of the person to say which is better, one or two, and then they can't see which one or two anymore at that point. And so it's a really big challenge. And we muddle through it, and at the end, they can see out their glasses, but it's not a great experience for either of us. But just my one concern that I have is that for us to get that interpreter in there, we have to get someone from Reno, and we end up paying, $100 and some odd an hour. And I don't know, is there any mechanism to get reimbursed for that? I mean, we pay it out of our pocket. They're long-term patients. I know them. I like them. But, if I'm paying for them to drive an hour in, an hour for the exam, and an hour out, here's your glasses and $50. I mean, I don't make a penny on those ones. And that's fine. If I had a whole practice of deaf people, I might have to figure something else out. But, I mean, is there any, for the hospitals are busy enough that they might be able to have a person on staff, but, I am not. Is there any potential to reimburse these small practices that are having to, recruit interpreters?
Erica Roth for the record. Thank you so much for that question, Assembly Member. And I think it's a fair one, right? I actually had a stakeholder come to me yesterday and raise this very issue. And I think it's important that, we recognize, especially in our rural communities, how important our doctors and healthcare providers are. We need to keep them there. We need to make sure that they're servicing those communities. And so I think it's a fair question, and I'm more than happy to continue the dialogue around that and see if there's something that we can do to make sure, especially in the rural counties, that we are not, having an impact on the folks who are providing care. And so I'm more than happy to continue that conversation.
Shelley Freed here. May I interject for the record? I really appreciate that you give interpreters for eye exams. I personally go to eye exams as well. And from what I understand, the insurance has VSP for the record, but they do pay a portion of the interpreting services with the right coding. And I know you can call the VSP to get that code number so that they will pay part of the interpreting services. Same thing with other general doctors or hospitals. And I'm sorry, but honestly, they don't want to be bothered to find interpreters. They just make a contract, they don't share, they don't train their staff annually on how to get interpreters, how to work with deaf patients, or have any kind of signage or information on the walls posting how to get an interpreter, how to contact an agency. They have a list of languages they provide, but they don't know what to do. You see the language list there, but ASL is not listed there. Now, with our efforts, you're going to start to see 2 hospitals that are going to have an icon on that list of interpreting hands to show that sign language interpreters can be provided. But again, do they know how to find the agency to find those interpreters? And they're not trained. And this is happening all over the state of Nevada. Unless nurses and doctors themselves, their office staff, already are aware and familiar with the background of what deaf people need, that may say, where's the interpreter for the patient? But I would say 90% of them are clueless. They don't know how to find an agency or to get those services. Even to run a VRI piece of equipment, which button to push, which agency to call up on the screen, they don't know how.
Thank you. We have another question from Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. My question is more of a clarifying educational type of question for me because I'm not versed in this subject. So we discuss language access in this committee quite a bit. Thank you, Co-Chair Wynn. And my question is, we've discussed ASL quite a bit today, but I don't want to assume, but I kind of have to assume that there are other sign languages out there in the world from other cultures. And with the melting pot that we have here in our state, are we focusing only on ASL, or are there, number one, are there other sign languages? And how prevalent would they be in our state, especially in the South with the tourist population that we get? I'm just wondering if we have any kind of data on that. Thank you.
Yes, I can answer that. Shelley Freed here, again, for the record. Great question, Senator Hybels. It actually, the American Sign Language is typically considered like a universal language all over the United States. However, there are other languages, variations such as Mexican Sign Language, LSM it's called. But patients themselves who sign in LSM, Mexican Sign Language, have usually another interpreter that is called a deaf certified interpreter, who is a deaf person that can work with the hearing interpreter, and they as a team can convey the message into a language that is readily understood by that deaf patient by knowing that person's language, their educational level, where they're from. They can adapt and show body parts, maybe a little more rudimentary, but it works in communication that way with the certified deaf interpreter and the certified hearing interpreter. They can translate from written documents, and that comes in very helpful in these cases when you have deaf people who are from other countries and use a different language.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for the latitude, and I appreciate the educational information.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, I'm curious to know, is there someone here from one of the state divisions that can talk about the assistive technology plan that we have currently? Anybody? Thank you so much for your willingness to come forward. I appreciate your flexibility today.
Good afternoon, Ricky Robb for the record, Aging and Disability Services. I guess we need to know what the actual question is to be able to tell you if we can answer it today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So first, there's seems to be some confusion around a couple of items. The first for me is it's my understanding that the state has an assistive technology plan that enhances communication for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, who are blind or have low vision, right? There's an AT plan that exists somewhere in one of our divisions, and I'm curious to know how we've modeled the TTY, right, which was the telephonic communication device when we had telephone lines. How have we transitioned that now to help people who are deaf or hard of hearing have communication? Any ideas?
Ricky Robb for the record. I can tell you through our communication access program and the funding through TDD surcharge, and my apologies, I will not be able to tell you what that stands for today. We do sub-awards into the community that actually provide direct services, whether it's a telecommunication equipment. And so that is in our communities. So I'm thinking that's what you're looking for. And so through the TDD surcharge, which is collected through the Public Utility Commission, the PUC, that funding is collected. It comes through Aging and Disability Services to the Communication Access Services unit. And then that funding is put out through an RFP process, through a Notice of Funding Opportunity. And then the equipment is in the community, whether it's, in the north or southern region or in the rural region, depending upon who actually applies. If it's a nonprofit or for-profit business, then the individuals who need that equipment would go directly to those individuals who have been funded through the Communication Access Program through the TDD surcharge.
Thank you, Administrator Robb. So that is a person who is deaf or hard of hearing would then be able to go and get access to a telecommunication device specifically for themselves, correct?
Ricky Robb for the record, that is correct.
Thank you. As a follow-up, is there a mechanism where an industry, a business, a small provider of ophthalmology could go and gain access to that type of device for their patients, for their care, for their business?
Ricky Robb for the record, that's a great question. I would say in the past, we have not necessarily worked for a physician or someone to be able to utilize something that's usually personal use. However, based on being able to provide access, if there was a mechanism or a tool that we could provide to that provider, I would say we would find a way to do that. I think the challenge with that, just off the top of my head, the challenge with that is that again, it's for that individual use. So they typically come to us based on their level of need, whether it's like CART, something that we use all the time, for that individual to communicate with. So on the ASL side of that, on the American Sign Language part, that would be difficult because that's not what this equipment does. Usually it's an enhancement phone, or it's a phone when that individual is on that telephone, that the CART registry would actually, the CART would actually come out on the phone and it would show the script. But I would say we are open to see what that would look like to provide access. I think the main piece that I would like all of you to understand is ADA is a federal requirement. Every person deserves access. That's already in law. It's already in federal law. State statute supports that federal law. And as an individual, I would hope that everyone is able to provide that. I understand cost, but that cost is based on providing that services to the individual who live in our state. So my hope is that we would find a way to be able to provide that access to every individual, just as we have done to interpret for someone who speaks a different language. This is a different language. ASL is a different language, and we need to, different than English. That's the only difference. It's just another language.
Thank you for that. And then I have another question about the list, just for clarification purposes. We've talked a little bit about a list of interpreters. The state maintains a list of registered, so it's a state registered sign language interpreter that is certified. So first, can you talk about what's the difference between being a certified interpreter and being a registered interpreter?
Ricky Rubb, for the record, I will be phoning a friend.
Adrienne Navarro, for the record. Thank you for the question. So the registry has different qualifications set out in NRS 656A. Not all registered interpreters are certified. Many are certified, especially our community interpreters. Not all educational interpreters are certified, but there are requirements and testing requirements. One of them is called the EIPA. I don't know what that stands for, but there's a certain score in that as well. But the qualifications are all detailed in NRS of what a qualified interpreter is in the state of Nevada to provide either educational or what's considered community interpreting, which is any interpreting outside of the K-12 setting in Nevada. So not all interpreters are certified, but all interpreters in Nevada are registered and therefore qualified to interpret in Nevada.
Apparently Assemblymember Gray has a question. Go right ahead.
I do, Madam Chair, to piggyback off your question. So I thought when you had mentioned certified earlier, I thought you were talking specifically about certified medical translators. So these people that would be interpreting don't even have a medical background or medical certification? I mean, because that could breed massive confusion and problems there in and of itself.
Adrienne Navarro, for the record, that's correct. We don't have a specific list or registration or certification for medical interpreters in Nevada. We have a community interpreter registry, and it's honestly up to the interpreter whether they, through their professional ethics, whether they accept an interpreting assignment or not, whether they are qualified to do that job or not. So that's really what it comes down to. We have the minimum requirements set in NRS 656A, so then somebody becomes registered. But when an interpreting assignment goes through an agency, so if a healthcare provider was to contact an agency to request an interpreter for this type of an eye exam or something else going on, it's really up to the interpreter whether they accept the assignment or not for that. Yep.
Thank you. And then just one last point of clarification. Will the state be maintaining a list of registered sign language interpreters that agencies or organizations around our state can reach out in order to find an appropriate sign language interpreter, or is that not the intention of this list?
Adrienne Navarro, for the record. So the Nevada Interpreter Cart Registry maintains a list of registered interpreters. It is not intended for a doctor's office to go through and pick an interpreter to contact. It's just the actual, these are the individuals qualified in Nevada to provide interpreting services. Those individuals work through agencies usually. So it's the agency, the interpreter agency that a hospital or a healthcare provider would reach out to then they reach out to their pool of usually independent contracted interpreters to see who is available to accept the assignment or not. But the list is really more, I guess I'd like to say the registry is more of a consumer protection type of, the law is, where it is really providing that all of those interpreters are qualified to provide interpreting in Nevada, either educationally or through the community. There are protections and there for grievances and things like that. So it's about the individual consumer ensuring that the person that they receive services from is a registered interpreter. It's not about the organization or the entity contacting individuals on the registry. We don't even have it posted, the phone numbers or contact information for the people on the registry. It's just, are they registered or not? It's so that individuals know, are they qualified to be doing that service or not?
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. Then just one final question, and we'll wrap, members. Thank you for your patience here. If I am a hospital, an emergency room doc, an eye doctor, and I need to gain access to a sign language interpreter, where do I go? Am I Googling that? Or does the Nevada Commission on the Deaf have a list of providers? How do I find an appropriate person to help with sign language interpretation?
Adrienne Navarro for the record. I don't believe that's kept anywhere right now, that list of agencies. What we do with the state, I would say, is if we need to find an interpreter, which we often do as well, we reach out to those that are agencies that are contracted through the state, through the master service agreements with the state. So there are a couple of agencies that are contracted with the state of Nevada to do that. Not all agencies in Nevada are contracted with the state. So we don't manage that or know what agencies are within Nevada to be able to provide all interpreting services. Communication Access Services Program doesn't oversee that in any way. So I think that's a really good question, and one that we probably need to, as a body, need to be looking into, so that if a bill like this goes through, how are hospitals and healthcare providers, where do they go to just make the calls to go through the list of getting somebody as soon as they can?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Erica Roth for the record, and I'll just add, thank you so much for that question, Chair. In my communications with stakeholders too, I know that some of the hospitals have a preferred list or a list that they currently use, but I think that's a really important question, and I'm very happy to see if there's a way we can address that in this bill.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, at this time, we'll ask you to go ahead.
Yes, excuse me. This is Shelley Freed for the record, if I may.
Ms. Freed, if you don't mind, we're going to move into testimony in support at this point, if that's all right with you. I think
Sure,
we've about wrapped.
sure.
Thank you so much for being there. Thank you. This time, we'll ask you to go ahead and step back. We will invite anyone here in support of this measure, Assembly Bill 395, to come forward. As I stated earlier, we're going to work on 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes in opposition, 20 minutes in neutral. And so I will just ask you to please come forward and offer your 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin. Do you want to start here in Carson City? I think.
No, I want to get like this. He needs you to interpret. Yeah. You want to just switch now?
Sure.
Can you see me? I can see you.
Okay, thanks. I can't see.
No. Who is this? Should do that. Okay, hello. Good afternoon, council members. I've missed the testimony person's name. I wanted to let you know that I have moved here. I'm going to repeat my name for the interpreter. It is Michael. Dinto, I believe is how you say it. That is my name. Davison, thank you. So I grew up in California and I moved because of work. So I moved for employment. And I've been here 44 years. I've seen the hospitals help nowhere. They haven't done anything, and it's just really a shame. To see so many people go without services. It's a real shame. My best friend, just 1 month ago, the doctor told him to go to the hospital
And, he immediately was just overwhelmed and confused. He goes to the hospital and wakes up. And totally confused about what kind of care is going on. He has no access to an interpreter and all of these people there. He's like, why am I in a nursing home? He's getting shots and medication. He's totally disoriented and has no clue what is going on. He was told he's been in nursing home for 3 weeks without communication. He's been getting medications and shots with no access. And now, he's just in a state of incapacitation. It's horrible. The next day, he was taken to the ICU in the hospital and experienced a stroke. And he is now considered brain dead and continues to be in the hospital. If your loved one, if you had a loved one in that same experience, would you let that happen to them? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no one else here in support up in Carson City, we'll go ahead and move down to Las Vegas. I'll remind you 2 minutes for each testimony, and we're going to try to keep you pretty close to that, so I might interrupt you. But you may begin when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Melanie, for the record, Seaman, Seaman. Hello to the members of the Assembly. I want to share with you my experiences. Last summer, I had spinal surgery. And prior to that, during the development of the procedure, I had no interpreter. VRI was brought in, but I was very anxious, very emotional. I was worried about paralysis. I was worried. I had a lot of questions. At that point, I told the doctor, I really need a live interpreter on site during my surgery. And they said, all right, no problem. I called twice about this. On July 1st, I arrived in the morning and no interpreter was there. And I said, what happened? What happened? Where's the interpreter? Nobody knew. Nobody could tell me. My own surgeon had asked for an interpreter, but was not arranged and not provided. This was at Southern Hills Hospital in Las Vegas. Anyway, I had the surgery. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how things were going to progress. I felt like a little puppy dog just blindly following my master. When they gave me the IV, it burned so bad, and they didn't even tell me what it was. They just jabbed me with the needle. Overnight, no interpreter came. There was VRI, but you know where it was? Way down the corner of the hallway, far away from my room, and the doctor and the nurses, and nobody knew how to use it. So I was released. I went home. I followed the written instructions. My family helped me learn all the things I was supposed to do. A month later, I had a problem with my leg. And I was struggling with that, so I went to see the doctor. No interpreter arranged at the doctor's appointment. So frustrating. And then he decided to send me to the hospital again for a reevaluation. I went to the hospital, same hospital, Southern Hills, and you know what happened? They put me in the hallway, all the way at the very, very end, facing a wall and a door where the fire alarm and exit is. No TV, no VRI, no interpreter, no nothing for 3 days. I laid there crying, angry, emotional. Why, God, is this happening to me? Why can't I get attention like hearing people? This is my body, my health, my life. And I was so frustrated. Thank you, but I don't want to go back to that hospital again. I'm having problems with the leg again. And I'm not going to get an interpreter. I know I'm not going to get to. And my daughter or my colleagues are helping me. And that's not okay. I'm so frustrated. So I've gone to the surgeon again. I've had epidural injections. I did have an interpreter at the time. They did bring in a VRI, which I rejected. I want a live interpreter. And they were saying, well, we want to save money. And I said, I'm sorry. This is my health. It comes first. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me.
Next
Hello.
person in Vegas, please go
Thank
ahead.
Hello, thank you for having us today. My name is Sean Maholland. For the record, I'm the president of the Las Vegas Deaf Seniors. I strongly support AB 395. Without a doubt, 100%. It's an incredibly serious matter. In regards to my own personal family members, my mother is deaf. I come from a family of deaf people. My mom was 83 years old and she started to have health issues. Her health declined and we came to find out that she had dementia. So I decided, after discussion with my family, that being that I'm the only family, only child, I didn't have any brothers or sisters, which wasn't easy, but my two daughters who are at UNR, they're attending school, they are students. I couldn't put them in a position to help me, so I put my mother into a nursing home. They refused to provide my mother an interpreter. We had no access to communication. We had to write back and forth, my fiance and I, in order to communicate. There were 300 hearing people in that assisted living facility. My mother was the only deaf person. I had no choice but to put her there. But since March of 2020, since COVID, they didn't allow me to go into the nursing home. Of course, it was, there were guidelines in place. Before COVID, I had installed a video phone, a VP, so that I could communicate with my mother, but they didn't have internet connection, high speed, to allow her to be able to access that. They only had Wi-Fi. And so during COVID, those years that we were locked down, I had no communication with my mother. 12 months went by. I would call the nurse, I would reach out, and I would ask how my mother was, and they would say, she's fine. We separate, you can't have any contact. She's in her own room. She's separated. She's by herself. And I just thought, my mom's by herself. She's isolated. She's deaf and she's alone. All the other hearing people in that facility had the ability to talk to their family, to make phone calls, to communicate. Finally, they allowed me in to visit my mother. I had to stay outside of the window. I had to sign through a window in order to communicate with her. She was inside, I was outside. Of course, you could see that she was unkempt. She was not cared for. She was depressed. But because of the lack of communication between my mom and that staff, and just so you know, this is very difficult for me. Just teaching her how to get the VP working, getting the staff to try to reboot it. They wouldn't work with us. They wouldn't know how. So no communication. My mom was lonely. She was depressed. She was sad. After 2 years, they allowed me in physically to visit her. And I could see that her room was not cared for. There was a smell. It was terrible. The staff wasn't honest. They didn't provide communication. They didn't give her an interpreter. My mom was so lonely. And so as I think about this and how it impacted me, I was like, can my mom be transferred to another nursing home so she can be with other deaf people, so she can have a better communication? And the answer was no, we can't, because of HIPAA laws. And we know HIPAA means health, I means insurance, P means portability, A is accountability, and A is act. So it's a federal law.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony. At this point, we're going long. We're at about 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes left of support testimony. So a ditto in support of this measure would be appreciated, depending upon how many folks are waiting there. So go ahead. You may begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Rollert, for the record. I am a member of the board of Las Vegas Deaf Seniors, and I strongly support AB 395. I remember the last time that I myself had to go to a hospital. I had to have a pacemaker installed. When I was admitted to the hospital and I met the nurse, I told the nurse I needed an interpreter, and she says, "No, we don't have any interpreters here. We don't have that kind of accessibility. We just have this computer, this VRI. You can use this." The nurses and the doctors, though, didn't actually know how to plug the machine in. They didn't know how to set up the VRI machine. So I asked what I was supposed to do. So I called my friend on FaceTime with my phone, explained to them what was going on. And so I kind of was able to use my phone, but it was super frustrating because the doctors and nurses you would think would be trained and learn how to work with the equipment and just how to even plug in the VRI. So definitely having some training and definitely having that, having that accessibility. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, the doctor and the nurses should know more when it comes to making it easier for us to be able to communicate with them, the nurses and the hospital staff. Thank you so much for listening and for your time today.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Hello, my name is Cindy Higgins. For the record, I'm a member of Las Vegas Deaf Seniors, and I just want to thank you for this committee for listening to our stories, and thank you for Assemblywoman Brown May for listening to us today. I went to the hospital, and it was an emergency situation. I had to have heart catheterization. There was no time to call a sign language interpreter because of the emergency nature of the situation. They brought in VRI, but they realized that during the process that I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the screen. I couldn't move my head. My hands were tied down and I couldn't even sign to the interpreter. And so the doctor was delayed by 2 hours because of another emergency. And so the anesthesia wore off. I was trying to tell them I need some communication. I started to feel overwhelmed, started to freak out. Everything was moving so fast, dealing with the hospital staff. The doctor kept looking at me and trying to tell me with his, I could see that his jaw was moving because I could see the mask moving up and down, but I didn't know what he was saying. And so one of the nurses came in and she wrote on a piece of paper and put it in front of me, asking if I needed more medicine. And I told her, yeah, I need more medicine. So they gave me medicine to calm me down. But the VRI was taken away and I was like, what happened? What are the results? And they gave me 2 thumbs up. Good job. And I was like, okay. So I just went back home and 3 weeks later, they call me and they say, why didn't you make an appointment? Why didn't you do your follow-up? You had all these instructions you're supposed to follow through with, and they're very important. And I was like, you told me 2 thumbs up. You said everything was good. But you have heart. Well, no, that was just about the procedure. Ma'am, you have heart failure. I had no idea. Nobody told me that. And so I had to make all these appointments and then I went in to follow up and it was just a huge frustration because had I known when I left the hospital, I would have taken care of it right away. But luckily I was able to get it taken care of. And so I went in for a different procedure and I told the doctor I needed a live interpreter. They got me a VRI and they said, it's not working. I can't face the screen. I'm on my side. This isn't going to work for a procedure. The doctor said, don't worry about it. We'll make it work. And then after a half hour, the doctor realized that it was not working, that it was an absolute failure, can't see the sign language interpreter, can't communicate with the doctor. So they canceled the entire appointment, rescheduled the procedure for me to come back. It was a 2-hour drive to see that specialist and to take that time off of work and to have to re-navigate that again. And I just told them, next time, get a live interpreter. So after it was done, I realized I can see the difference. I've experienced it myself. And most of my doctors in Washington State, where I'm from, use an iPad to provide VRI services. You don't need fancy equipment, but you do need to understand how to use the equipment.
Thank
Do you
you.
think that would be a simple process?
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate you coming in and
Thank
sharing your
you.
story with us. Just as a reminder, we're down to less than 5 minutes, so a quick ditto in support of this measure will let more people come through. I would encourage you to go quickly. Please go ahead.
I support, name, wait, your name. My name is Daniel Watson, for the record. This is my first time doing this, something like this. So I'm a bit nervous. So, okay, I'm 86 years old. So I support Assembly Bill 395. And my sister was in the hospital because she fell in the hospital. Oh, excuse me. I fell, was in the hospital. And so I didn't know what had happened. And my glasses were taken from me. I couldn't read. I needed an interpreter. And there was no one there. There was no interpreter who came to the hospital. I was there a few days. And so I had to go home. That's all.
Thank you. We are down to 2 minutes. Go quickly.
Yeah. Let me switch it. Okay. Let me switch it. My name is Harold Herbert, for the record. I want to say I support AB 395. I was in the hospital for a week. I didn't have an interpreter, and I had to leave, and I didn't have an interpreter. And I know I'm limited on time, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Well done.
This is David Comer. I support AB 395. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Excellent work.
My name is Gary Cacciatore. Gary Cacciatore, Cacciatore, and I am in support of AB 395. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jabril, Jibril. And last name I'm going to spell it is Jaha. Jaha. I want to say that I'm an account manager for Z and Purple VRS. We work better together is the motto of the company. I support AB 395 because I believe that having access to community access is something that we need. It's a foundational right. And we need to take the time. Thank you for your time today, for allowing us to be here, and also to acknowledge the seriousness that the deaf need access for good health care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are at 20 minutes at this time, so if you don't mind, we're going to pause testimony and support. If you are here in support and you did not have an opportunity to testify, please make sure that you write your name on the list and leave it with the secretary. We're going to move into opposition testimony at this time. If you are here in opposition of Assembly Bill 395, now you want to come forward. I know it's a painful walk, but please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chair Brown May, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, Director of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. We are here in opposition today to AB 395 as originally drafted. Do want to really quickly thank the bill sponsor, Assemblymember Roth, for working with us and meeting with us on the proposed amendment, and we look forward to moving to neutral with should that amendment be adopted. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City in opposition of Assembly Bill 395? Is there anyone in Las Vegas in opposition to Assembly Bill 395? I see people at the table. Are you here in opposition for Assembly 395?
No, we are not.
Okay, thank you. AVH, is there anyone on the telephone line in opposition of Assembly Bill 395?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 395, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 395, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you, AVH. We'll move into neutral testimony at this time. Anyone who is here in neutral, thank you. Please come forward at this time.
Hello, my name is Doris Tagliolitella. I just want to say that there are specific requirements to ensure that deaf people will have access, and for people who have their primary language for communication is American Sign Language. I would suggest taking a look at the ADA as well as the Affordable Care Act 1557. 1557, the communication access, defines the laws and it clarifies who is responsible for providing sign language interpreters. Any entity that receives federal money must provide a sign language interpreter. They also define what a sign language interpreter is and who may and may not be an interpreter at an event. They clarify it, and that on-site interpreters are preferred.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Caroline Preston Bass, and I want to speak to you from the perspective of a child who has deaf parents and has
Ms.
been
Preston
told.
Bass, I just want to be clear. Are you here in neutral to offer testimony on Assembly Bill 395?
Yes, I'm describing the experience of what a child of deaf parents goes through.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Many children of deaf parents are told by the professionals when they go with their families into the hospitals or doctor's offices that they have to be the interpreter for that appointment. No child should ever have to be the one who interprets for their parents and tells them things like their spouses have cancer, they're going to pass away, or even to interpret for their mother making funeral arrangements for her husband. Many of us who are children of deaf parents have had to do that all our lives. Myself, I did that when I was 7 years old, and you must know how traumatic that can be for children of deaf adults. I know in California, for example, there is a state law that children may not interpret for their parents for these types of situations, not only ASL, but all languages. Children should not be used in these situations. I have a lot more to say, but it's more in support and I will not go there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas who would like to offer neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 395? I will remind you, neutral is not in support or opposition. It's just simply offering information on this measure. If you are here in neutral, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Assembly members. My name is Sammy Milburn. I happen to also be an interpreter here, a certified interpreter in Nevada. I wanted to offer two perspectives. They are neutral. One being that when you are using an interpreter, instead of writing information out, the amount of information is going to be given much quicker. So when you're talking about a doctor's office having to physically write paper and pen out back and forth to a patient, that is going to be extremely time consuming. Otherwise, if you have an interpreter, the conversation is going to be in real time and your appointment's going to go much quicker, which is going to help with the whole diagnosis and the patient. The other perspective, there were some comments earlier about are there enough interpreters? And I don't want to give the impression that there aren't enough interpreters. We definitely need more in this field. But There are a lot of interpreters out there that are available. It just depends on which venue you use to try and find them. So I would suggest to not limit yourself to one venue to securing interpreters when you're not able to get them. That is all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. At this time, we'll come up here to Carson City and neutral testimony. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole Rourke, representing the City of Henderson and specifically our fire department. First, I'd like to thank Assemblymember Roth, the sponsor of this bill, for her help in making an amendment for emergency personnel. It's certainly a difficult situation if you've ever been in an ambulance, you know it's a little tight in there, so including another person on the bus, if you will, would be incredibly difficult. But I do want to assure the committee that we do have aids available to our first responders. We use visual aids, a pain scale, other items that I'm sure you're familiar with to ensure that we can communicate appropriately with a deaf or hard of hearing person in an emergency. So, and for that, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allison Herzik with Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican. We're here today in neutral with the amendment, and we want to thank Assemblymember Roth for working with us, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue with her. I just want to quickly mention that several of our hospital leaders recently met with members of the deaf community, and we're committed to working with them to ensure access to effective communication. We're actively engaged in re-education of our workforce to have a heightened awareness of this need, and we're working to ensure we have signage in every unit to direct staff to these proper resources. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, for the record. Here in neutral today, but we really, really want to get to support. So really appreciate, because this is such a laudable intent and goal, and really appreciate Assemblymember Roth for bringing the bill forward and working on this. I think, Madam Chair, I think we hit on the crux of the issue earlier with that list and the state registry, and that's specific to rural Nevada. One of our major concerns with this issue is just finding those certified, qualified interpreters and getting them out to rural Nevada. So we look forward to continuing to work on this. Thanks.
Patrick Kelly, Nevada Hospital Association. The stories today illustrate the importance of effective communication when healthcare decisions are made, and we really want to thank the sponsor who has taken a lot of time to meet with all the stakeholders, listen to us, because we need to get this right. So ditto on the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in neutral on this measure? Thank you. At this time, we'll go to the telephone lines. ABH, is there anyone here to offer testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 395?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 395, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify neutral, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you, ABH. At this time, we're going to go back, and I understand there are a couple of callers on the phone who did not have an opportunity, if they are here in support, since we did not get our 20 minutes in opposition or neutral. Would like to give them an opportunity on the telephone lines. ABH, is there anyone here who would like to offer comments in support?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support to Assembly Bill 395, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you have called in or would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 395, please press star 9 now.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Jones. I'm a parent of 2 deaf and hard of hearing teenagers. Many of you have met my children over the past 4 legislative sessions, and they have been involved in advocacy of their deaf and hard of hearing community. But today I'm calling to testify in support of AB 395 as an ally. Our family has not experienced the same hardships others are describing yet. I say yet because first, my kids are still minors, and luckily I have always been there for their numerous ER and hospital visits to help with communication access. Second, they both have a progressive hearing loss, so there will be a day where my kids have to rely on interpreters rather than spoken language. I want to set them up for success as modeled by the deaf community testifying here today. I have sat in many of the town halls Eric Wilcox and Shelley Freed commented about, and I have heard dozens of the stories from deaf adults about their experiences. But today I want to address the many, many stories I have heard from my hearing friends who are also parents of deaf or hard of hearing children who utilize American Sign Language. Imagine your child needing non-critical service like a broken arm and no interpreter is available. You may need to interpret between the medical staff and your child, and depending on your sign language skills, this may be easy or it may not be. Now imagine your deaf child having their umpteenth heart surgery. You've been awake for days, fretting over their well-being while taking care of the rest of your family. Now after the surgery, you have to be the interpreter for your crying child. They might not have the same access they're used to. All you want to do is comfort your child, but without an interpreter, you are now responsible for conveying the doctor, nurse, or technician's instructions, which most likely is going to be negative news. Access to certified ASL interpreters would allow parents to be just that, the parent to their sick and ailing child, not an interpreter whose emotions and limited vocabulary for medical terms is a hindrance to both the parent and the child. And while my children are not here today to testify, they will be providing their writing in support of AB 395 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you, AVH. At this time, we'll call the bill sponsor back up for any closing comments.
Thank you so much, Chair and Committee. Erica Roth for the record. Very briefly, I just want to say thank you to all the stakeholders for coming to the table and really trying to work through some of this language. But most importantly, I want to say thank you for everyone who shared their story here today. I think it's really hard to talk about some of those very vulnerable moments, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that, and I know the committee appreciates that as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 395. That leads us to our last item on our agenda, members, which is public comment. We will now open up time for public comment. As a reminder, we are not rehearing any of our bills. Our bills hearings are now closed. If you would like to offer public comment, you are welcome to 2 minutes. You can also submit your comments up to 24 hours after the hearing. Anyone here in Carson City who would like to offer public comment at this time? Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to offer public comment at this time? I see no movement there. AVH, is there anyone on the telephone line who would like to offer public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you, AVH. Members, that concludes our business for today. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention for this particularly long meeting but very important subject. With that, we are adjourned.